Good evening. Welcome to our meeting for the Concerned Citizens for Good Government. We have our distinguished guest, Bruce Conk, this evening. He's a candidate for District 6 of the Lafayette Consolidated Government. Our next meeting is going to be May 18th, and Bruce, your opponent's going to be here. So that's going to be Andy Nakan. He's the present councilman for District 6. So we can invite you back even after qualifications if you want to come back. So, all right. That's May 18th. Thank you.
This year? This year.
Thank you, Frank. Good evening, members. I'd like, before I introduce Mr. Conk here, I would like to just mention that we'd like to ask all of you to keep Ella's father in your prayers, if you would. He took a bad fall, and he was rushed to the hospital, and I'm not sure. I think he's doing reasonably well. Is that correct, Ella? Okay. But anyhow, please keep him in your prayers. We appreciate it. And we're very happy to have Mr. Bruce Conk. I've known him forever. I don't even want to say how many years, but it's been a while. We appreciate you being here this evening, too. He's a native of Lafayette, news reporter in the 1960s and 70s, small business owner, operator, management field in private sector, current serving on the Lafayette Planning and Zoning Commission, completing 2 years as chair, adopted plan Lafayette, approved Unified Development Code, former vice president of community development for the Greater Lafayette Chamber of Commerce, previously elected to the council in 2003-2007, helped create the LSU Fiber network, championed the Horse Farm history of community service, supports independent government for the city of Lafayette, and we're very happy that he's a candidate for that district, and we appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to visit. And tonight is more than just talking about District 6. It's talking about the significance of the elections that are coming up in the fall. As many of you know, it's going to involve elective offices all the way from the governor all the way down to the city parish council members. Just to give you an idea of the list on the ballot on October 24, you'll be voting for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, treasurer, commissioner of agriculture, commissioner of insurance, the board of elementary and secondary education, your state senators and your state representatives, and in Lafayette Parish, you'll be looking at electing a new Lafayette Parish sheriff, a clerk of court, an assessor, a coroner, a new person to be the Lafayette City Parish President, and of course the 9 districts on the Lafayette City Parish Council. So it promises to be a very busy ballot, and is going to be a very active campaign year between now and October the 24th. But there are 2 other dates that are significant at this point that I'd like to point out. One, while I have announced my intent to run for election to the Lafayette City Parish Council, District 6, qualification is not until September 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's a long way away. So when we look at the candidates and the folks who are talking about running for election today, things will change between now and September. To give you an example, there was a significant change in District 8 with Keith Patin last week announcing that he will not seek re-election. Well, at that time, there was only one person who had announced intent to run against Mr. Patin. Now that race is literally wide open. So things will change between now and then. But for District 6 at the moment, as Mr. Baudouin said, it is the incumbent and myself seeking election. While the primary is on October the 24th, there's something that has been transitioned over the last couple of years. It used to be called absentee voting. It's now called early voting. And it has become a very important part of the campaign. In the past, there was only a small percentage of folks who took advantage of absentee voting, mainly because they were going to be out of town on election day. Now with early voting, from October 10th through the 17th, as we campaign for public office, we have to pay attention to those numbers who will turn out and cast an early ballot. So those are significant dates. October 24th primary, but early voting will be October the 10th through the 17th. As Carol said in my introduction, I am a native of Lafayette. I grew up downtown, 4 blocks off of downtown on East Vermilion Street. I can remember the unique collaboration or the connection I had to City Hall at that time. I lived at 705 East Vermilion. City Hall was at 705 East University. My phone number was 234-1305. City government was 235-1305. Now, if you believe in coincidence, take it for what it is. So what I'm doing now, I'm running for an office which I think has a significant impact, not just on District 6. The folks in District 6 will represent me, will elect me to represent them, but it's a matter of serving on the council. As I grew up, Lafayette was a very, very small town in the 50s and the 60s, and I am proud to say that I played a huge part in growing our community into what we are today, which is one of the major communities in the state of Louisiana. And based on what I have done, what I'm offering to the folks on the ballot is I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I certainly have to have passion, and now, more than ever, I have the time that will allow me to pay it forward to the community that has given me so much over the last several decades. As I was preparing for this visit tonight, I looked back, and in retrospect, I was trying to determine how things have occurred over my life that led me to where I am today. And as Carol mentioned, one of the things I did, I was in broadcasting. And I will show you something that I had forgotten what I looked like. Okay? This is what life does to you, folks. Okay? This was in the mid-60s when I was on Channel 3. And I was the broadcaster for the news at 6 and 10. And it's amazing how people come up to me today and tell me, we remember you. And I'm going, okay, I look at this photo here, and I look at myself in the mirror, and they have a heck of a memory. But it's that recognition factor which today serves me in a very positive way. I covered state and local government for nearly 2 decades, covering Baton Rouge as the correspondent out there. I completed my career in broadcasting, working with CNN and with PBS. And what it did, it provided a foundation for the remainder of my professional life from the 1980s on. My involvement in public service actually began as a member of LINC. Now, you've heard that expression before. Back in 1998, LINC was known as Lafayette in the next century. By the time we finished our work, it was Lafayette in a new century, because we made our report in 2002. And what was interesting about LINC is how it came about. It actually started in Home Depot, in the hardware department there. One afternoon on a Saturday, my wife and I were shopping for some home improvement items, and Tony Trammell, who was the traffic and transportation guy at the time, he and I had known each other over the years, and he said, Bruce, he said, would you like to get involved in an effort that's underway now called LINC? I said, fine. He said, good, I'll give your name to Walter Como, who was the then parish president, and see if he's interested in appointing you. And he did. I think Walter didn't expect much out of that appointment. I hope I delivered more than he was expecting out of that. But it was the beginning, and it allowed me to understand how government functions and how government can best serve the community and the constituency. It also led to my election to the council in 2003, and again my re-election in 2007. A third period in my life came about in 2008. I had just been re-elected. I was 6 months into my term. In 2008, if you recall, it was a down economy. I had been self-employed most of my life. I was self-employed at that time. The market was getting tight in my area of specialty. And the Chamber of Commerce came to me and said, Bruce, we have a position that we have created that we'd like for you to consider filling. And it was one of those offers that you couldn't refuse. The compensation was about 4 times what I was making in salary at the council. The benefits were just unbelievable, especially when you compare the benefits to serving on the council, which are none. And the other thing it gave me was the opportunity to provide some financial security for my family, my wife and I. One of the things that was unexpected coming out of that was that they asked me if I wanted to continue being a council member, and my response was yes. But the negotiating factor came down to, you need to resign from the council if you want to work with the Chamber of Commerce, because they wanted to avoid any potential or perceived conflict of interest. So given the personal benefits, the compensation at play, the opportunity to build a secure future in terms of retirement, I just couldn't turn it down, so I accepted it 8 months into my second term. While I was given the opportunity to help the community and the business sector as a VP at the Chamber of Commerce, I was able to do some other things that I would not have been able to do even if I had been a Lafayette City Parish Council member. Because as a non-elected official, I was able to serve on the Lafayette Charter Commission. I was able to serve, and I continue to serve, on the Lafayette Planning and Zoning Commission. Those are 2 positions which cannot be filled by an elected official. So here's where I am today. I'm offering nearly 2 decades of experience, of knowledge, of relationships, and certainly to a great degree leadership. When I was on Link, it gave me some insight as to the workings of government. We provided and we produced what I thought was an excellent plan of action. Unfortunately, at the time, it did not have the support of the administration, and very little came out of that effort. However, Link did later serve as a basis for what today is known as Plan Lafayette, so our time was not wasted. During my tenure on the council, I take a great deal of pride in 2 significant achievements. One in which I actually voted on it, and the other in which I did not vote, which is of interest to a lot of people. The first was the LUS Fiber initiative. And back in 2006, we had put together a research team. I was pleased to be a member of that team. We had traveled to various parts of the country and looked at how other communities were doing fiber. And we offered it to the voters, and the voters approved it. A $120 million bond issue to build fiber to the premise in Lafayette. That's a significant achievement as part of that council that served from 2004 to 2008. While I was on the council, I also served as chair on several occasions of the Finance Committee, so that gave me a better understanding of how government is financed and how government spends those monies it collects. Perhaps the most significant action was one I did not take on the council. In 2007, I think it was, there was an effort to rezone what is now known as the Horse Farm on Johnson Street to allow commercial development on the front end, which basically would have sealed off the back side of that 100 acres of property. We were lobbied extensively. We were lobbied heavily, but they were unable to achieve or acquire the 5 votes that they needed to get the rezoning done. So they never brought it to a vote. So when I say that one of the best non-votes I ever made on the council, that was it, because today we are in the process of building one of the models of passive parks in the country. I was also on the Lafayette Charter Commission. There was a public vote on our recommendations, and the public elected not to support the recommendations. But there was a very positive outcome to that. I think it did raise public awareness of the inequities that exist in the current Lafayette City Parish Home Rule Charter. Most recently, I have played a very, very active role in Plan Lafayette. I was a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. I also served on the Downtown Action Plan, and I was part of a public-private initiative called POW. It was the Public Outreach Work Group. And the idea there was we were very concerned that we wanted to make absolutely certain that we had enough participation and engagement on the part of the public. This was not a document that was to be written by 32 people on this committee or 5 people on this committee. It had to have a lot of public input. And we were seeing a point where interest was waning. So we put together a public-private group where private monies were donated to market and publicize all of the activities associated with Plan Lafayette. It was a success. Very few people know what went into the campaign that they saw on television and the newspapers. But it was a significant and an opportunistic joining together of folks in public, such as myself, and private business. We had over $25,000 donated to the effort, probably another 25 equivalent in-kind services, when you consider the radio and TV stations and the newspapers actually gave away their classified ad space, their broadcast space, and their time on the radio. This month, will conclude 2 years as chairman of the Lafayette Planning and Zoning Commission. Our tenure is 2 years, and that's it, you're termed out. I've been on the commission now for 5 years. I'm very fortunate to work with a group of ladies and gentlemen who are very knowledgeable, very experienced, and who are not concerned about voting and placing their judgment and using their knowledge for the betterment of Lafayette. There's no political agenda. They work in the best interest of the community. And I take a great deal of pride in serving with them because they do so at no compensation. They're all appointed. We show up 2 Mondays a month, one time as a zoning commission, one time as a planning commission, and we do our job. And we do our job to the extent that as a planning commission, there have only been 5 appeals of our decisions in 2014. And we consider hundreds of cases on the planning commission. Out of Plan Lafayette, and I base my campaign somewhat on these ideas, we have 4 big ideas. I'm certain you've seen them. One is refined government. And what comes into play here is as we look at refining government, we are also looking at what will be the new leadership in 2016 in January. We will have a new parish president. That person sets the tone for the leadership of the parish. The parish president is the chief administrator for the city and the parish of Lafayette. As a council member, we are a governing body. A better description, we are legislators. So it's going to be interesting, and I think it should be important that we address the candidates for parish president and get an idea of what will they continue to support of the process and the progress that we've made thus far, especially on this Plan Lafayette, and what are their ideas about expanding on that progress. The other thing is revitalizing neighborhoods, and in District 6 we have several historic neighborhoods. In many cases, these neighborhoods are undergoing a major transition right now, where older residents are leaving their homes of 30, 35, and 40 years, and younger folks are moving in. And we're seeing a shift in the demographics in District 6, a significant shift, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But what's interesting about this younger generation is that they want a community which is less oriented toward vehicles and more oriented toward biking, toward walking, hiking, paddling. They want an opportunity to be active. Recreation is of importance to that younger generation, as well to a lot of us who are a little bit older than that. So I'm involved in a number of organizations that are looking at that. One of the areas that we're just ignored, we always look at is through our back door instead of our front door, and that's the Vermilion Bayou. It is a huge asset. We don't acknowledge that as being an asset. Bayou Teche in Iberia Parish and St. Martin and St. Mary, people think it's important. And they have really made significant advancements in encouraging paddling. People going canoeing and kayaking, and one called the Tournoi, which is a race, an annual race. This is something we should be looking at for the Vermilion, and we're not. But thankfully there are some folks out there who have that concern and that interest, and they're pursuing that. So that is part of re-envisioning the natural resources in Plan Lafayette. And as many of you know, we're often called the hub city for obvious reasons. If you look at the road system, it's a huge hub, which Lafayette is the center. We continue to be a retail and service center, an entertainment center for all of Acadiana. While we only have a couple of 100,000 people in Lafayette Parish, about 750,000 people come to Lafayette on a regular basis. So it's important that we continue to play our role as a hub city. But we have to do more than that. We have to reach out, because today we have the technology to become a center for the state and for this part of the United States. Because with fiber to the premise at our homes and our businesses, we can do business anywhere in the world. And we can do it at the highest rate of broadband that you can find anywhere in the world. Lafayette is leading the country, and we need to stay in that position. While I'm looking to be back on the council, and certainly I would hope to be very productive on the council, I'm not wasting my time now. I have, as I mentioned, been involved with the Lafayette Zoning and Planning Commission, but I'm also involved in civic organizations. I'm a member of the board of directors for a trail, which is oriented toward developing recreational opportunities. I am a member of the League of Women Voters, and we are into public education and engagement. A member of the 705. Although I'm a little bit past their age guideline, I'm still a member as an emeritus member. Scenic Lafayette, that's a new group that just started up last year. That's to an effort to preserve our aesthetic value, our natural environment in the city of Lafayette. The Bayou Vermilion Preservation Association, Charles Wyatt and his wife Jan have made, now these are two folks that came to Lafayette several years ago who are not native of Lafayette, but they saw something that we didn't see. They saw the Vermilion River as an asset, and they have put together an association, not only within Lafayette Parish, but all of the parishes that touch on the Vermilion, to see what can we do to advance the potential of the river. Not just in terms of recreational opportunities, but making certain that it becomes an even cleaner body of water, that we can enjoy it safely. I'm currently on the board of directors for the Downtown Lafayette Unlimited, which is a private arm of the district Downtown Development Authority, and we help provide input and guidance and direction to the authority. I serve as an advisor to the Academy of Information Technology at Karen Crowe High School. I am a nerd, a techie, whatever you're going to call me. I'm very much into technology, and it's a privilege to work with these young people who far surpass me as far as skill level is concerned. And of course, my wife and I are members and participants in a number of arts and culture organizations in the parish and the city of Lafayette. So, what do we have to face in 2016 when I'm on that council? Well, first of all, who's going to be our new parish president? Because that is going to be a determining factor. And that is going to be critical as to what form of leadership will be provided. Now, as a council, we don't have to follow that leadership, but certainly that person, whomever it is, does set the pace for leadership. And there are several issues that need to be addressed. And a lot of people will tell you that Bruce is only for the city of Lafayette, he wants its own government and all this. Yes, I do. But let me tell you, of greater concern to me is the parish of Lafayette. Folks, the parish of Lafayette is broke. It's broke. You will see fewer potholes being filled. You will see fewer ditches being cleaned. You will certainly not see any new infrastructure, new bridges or new roads in the parish of Lafayette. There is no money. The reason for that is that the property taxes that we have in place today are not adequate to cover the cost of mandated services for the parish of Lafayette. We have to have a jail. We have to have a courthouse. We have to have offices for the assessor, for the clerk of court. Those are mandated. The monies that we collect in property taxes are not adequate to fund those mandates. So what happens is we draw from our general fund. The general fund is where you get the monies that you can use to clean the ditches, that you can fill the potholes. But when you're drawing from a general fund to do other things, then you're not going to do as many potholes and ditches. And what's of real concern is the general fund, the primary source of revenue, is a sales tax. The sales tax in the unincorporated area of the parish of Lafayette is 2%. It is shrinking at a rapid rate. Every time a municipality, be it Lafayette, Carencro, Scott, Broussard, Dusson, Youngsville, every time they take in, through annexation, a part of the parish, they also take in the sales tax. And Lafayette Parish loses the sales tax. So a combination of inadequate property taxes and a rapidly diminishing sales tax revenue stream, and you're going to have a parish that basically is broke. You're also going to have to look at some other needs for which we have no funding, and in some cases we have no plan. And that's a challenge for the new parish president and for the council. We have a crumbling infrastructure. Drive down any road in the parish of Lafayette, unincorporated, and you will agree with me that we have some issues with our parish roads. We have bridges that are closing because of safety issues, and in most cases they will not be reopened because there's nothing to cover the cost. And that creates a huge logistical problem in terms of moving traffic. If you close a bridge, it's connecting points. And if you close that bridge, people who have been using those two connecting points are going to have to look for access through another roadway. So you create traffic issues. You've heard some issues about the parish courthouse, about placing a new parish courthouse where the old federal courthouse is located in downtown Lafayette. There is a lot of controversy involved in that. The opposing sides have yet to agree on exactly what would be an acceptable plan of action. And even if there's a consensus reached on location and how do we go about addressing a new courthouse, where will the money come from? To build a new courthouse today, you're probably looking at $50 to $60 million. And that's parish money, not City of Lafayette money. That is a parish responsibility. Of even greater concern, and you have to have some empathy and sympathy for those who live outside of a municipality, the unincorporated area of Lafayette Parish. People say, well, that can't be too many people. 65,000 people live outside of a municipality. And if I'm one of those 65,000 people, I would be very concerned that I do not have adequate fire protection. Just one example of how the unincorporated area of Lafayette Parish is underserved. Now, on the positive side, the City of Lafayette is doing quite well, thank you very much. But we have a lot of challenges. We do have a good, solid revenue stream. Our sales tax collections are up. Our retail sales continue to increase at a rapid rate every month. And the challenges that we face in the City of Lafayette is the redevelopment of our core. And when I say our core, a lot of it is in District 6. Most people think of the core of Lafayette as being downtown Lafayette, and it is critical that we redevelop our core, that we strengthen its appeal. The challenge there is we don't have a residential component in this downtown Lafayette area. So while there is a number of young folks coming into our area who are, for example, working at CGI, which is a technology company in downtown Lafayette, they are having to live elsewhere. But it is their generation that really wants to live in downtown Lafayette. They want to have access to the entertainment, to the restaurants, to the culture. But if there's no residential component, they can't do it. So that's a challenge. Infill development. One of the issues in government in providing services is when a subdivision develops on the outskirts of the City of Lafayette, In most cases, we don't have the infrastructure to serve those new citizens of Lafayette. Wastewater collection, water, electricity, fiber. So you have to provide a new access to it. That costs money. And yes, we get our money back over the number of years based on the electrical rates, the wastewater rates, the water rates. But it takes time for us to get that money back. If you develop inside the city of Lafayette, everything's in place. Your roads are built, wastewater and sewer lines are in, water lines are in, electricity here, fiber's here. There is very little expense to the city of Lafayette for someone to develop within the city limits of Lafayette. It also brings down the cost of developing in the city of Lafayette, something that we're addressing in the Unified Development Code. We're trying to incentivize developers to look at the city of Lafayette, to look at properties that are only 50 foot wide by 70 foot deep, and allowing them the opportunity to develop under new rules, where they don't have to have a 20-foot setback on the front of the property and take away most of the property, therefore discouraging development. Does that make sense? That's what we're looking at. And that's the little issues that will come to play in the Unified Development Code. I addressed, I and a couple other folks involved in Plan Lafayette several months ago addressed the State Planning Association because we were recognized for our plan. And it was somewhat embarrassing. Here we had created a model plan that's going to be used as an example throughout the state and the South. And we got around to the aesthetic value of our community. I'm a native of Lafayette, and I think just like anyone who has lived in anywhere for any length of time, you tend to overlook things. You tend to understand that Lafayette is a great place to have crawfish boils in the backyard. Lafayette is a great place to go to the horse farm, which will be a major attraction in 5 to 10 years. What we fail to look at is when we have people who come into Lafayette, whether they are tourists who are just visiting with us for a brief amount of time, or if we have a business who's looking to locate in Lafayette. You come into Lafayette two different ways. By the airport, if you're fortunate to be able to fly. You come out of the airport, you're facing Surrey, you're the Evangeline Thruway, which speaks for itself, and you start accessing the major arteries in the city of Lafayette, and folks, we ain't pretty. We're even uglier if you come in from Interstate 10. I mean, think about it. Ambassador Caffrey. Think about coming in on Ambassador Caffrey off I-10. What about University Avenue? University Avenue is the major road to our university. It is a major access to our downtown. It is a major access to all of our historic neighborhoods. The St. Streets, Lafayette Middle School. If you look at University Avenue between I-10 and Cameron Street, there's not a sidewalk, there's not a tree, there's nothing. It's an issue that we need to address. We need to take pride in how we present ourselves to others. And then of course there's the Evangeline Thruway, which eventually will become the I-49 connector. And that in itself is a challenge because we have to make certain that that connector does not divide the city, both figuratively and literally. Economic development. A lot has been said in recent weeks about TIFs, and in recent months about pilots. While I was on the council, we created the TIF for Louisiana Avenue and I-10. I think that was an excellent example how TIFs can work and be successfully applied. What's missing now in the political process is we have no guidelines, we have no policy. So when we make decisions on whether or not a TIF should be voted on in a certain area, it's based on either emotions or politics, or even worse, on politics and emotion. There are no guidelines to refer to and say, look, this is what it was intended to do, how does it factor in here? We don't have that policy. Moving traffic. I'm never ever going to claim that I'm a traffic engineer, an expert, but I will tell you this, I've learned over the years, you can widen your roads all you want, and you will not move traffic any faster. you will just move more traffic at about the same rate. The difference is, and this is something Tony Trammell just drilled into my mind, it's not the mode, how you get there, it's the node as to how you handle that traffic at the intersection. If you live on Ambassador Caffrey, which I do, I live right off of Caffrey, on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, traffic is backed up all the way from the Walmart almost to and past Aras Landry. And why? Because we have 1, 2, 3 major intersections, all with traffic signals, trying to accommodate thousands of vehicles in a very short period of time. Interesting bit of trivia. The busiest highway in the city of Lafayette at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday is Ambassador Caffrey at the bridge. 50,000 cars in the afternoon. Significant number. The good thing is we have money, and we can certainly apply the revenue streams that we get from sales tax to solving some of our infrastructure problems. But in my mind, one of the major issues and the challenges we have is the city of Lafayette needs to have its own governing authority to determine how our revenue streams are spent and where they are spent. We went through a campaign on so-called deconsolidation. I thought that was a misnomer. It wasn't deconsolidation, but it did bring out the fact that the city of Lafayette, over 100,000 people who do not live in the city of Lafayette tell us who live in the city of Lafayette what to do with our sales tax dollars, how to set our electrical rates, how to run our police and fire department, on and on and on. It's just not fair. We need to have our own structure of government. Broussard, Karen Crow, Scott, Youngsville, Dusson all have their own council and their own mayor. We do not tell them how to run their governments, but they certainly have an opportunity to tell us. The other thing that's very critical when it comes to the city of Lafayette is our Lafayette Public Utilities Authority and the Lafayette Public Power Authority. Those are governing bodies for, if you live in the city of Lafayette, your utility system. We have the largest municipally owned utility system in the state of Louisiana. On the Public Utilities Authority are 5 members of the City Parish Council who are there because 60% or more of their district has city constituency. Well, that's fine, but there's only one district that's totally within the city of Lafayette, and that's District 6. So even if the other 4 have 60% or more citizens of Lafayette, they still have a number of folks who live outside the city who elect them, and again, they're telling us how to run our utility system. This is going to be a major issue in the upcoming election. I can tell you right now, based on what we've heard so far in the announcement for the campaign. District 6, as I said, is the only district totally within the city of Lafayette. District 7, which is Don Bertrand's district, has about 62% city of Lafayette residents. That race is being contested. Don has not announced his intentions as yet, but already there's a candidate who wants to replace him on the council. District 8, as I mentioned earlier, Keith Potak will not run for re-election. You have a new member of the council coming on board who will be on the Public Utilities Authority. Those are 3 significant races as it impacts the citizens of Lafayette and how we run our utility system. But with everything I've said about how important is the council, okay? Council knows all, very wise, does all the right things, everything we want out of them. That should not be our attitude. Our attitude should be the council reflects what we want as a constituency. And unfortunately, we don't voice our wants, our desires, and our needs quite enough. And yet we have so many opportunities to do so. We have over 36 boards and commissions in the city of Lafayette and Lafayette Parish that play a significant part in the improvement of Lafayette. A couple of examples. The Lafayette Library Board, what, like 4, 5, maybe 6 years ago, we put up a bond issue of $24 million to build 4 branches and completely renovate the downtown, the main library, which opens this month, by the way. And at that time, the political leaders said, over our dead bodies. And you know what the board told them? We'll be careful not to step on you. And they pushed, and they got 5 members of the council to support the initiative to bring it to the voters who approved the bond issue. That was because of a very persuasive, tenacious, and involved library board. More recently, the Lafayette Airport Commission. They came up with a very unique revenue stream that we had never tried before, a sunset tax. They came to us and they said, look, if you let us collect 1 cent on every dollar spent in Lafayette Parish from April 1 through November 30th, that will give us enough money, about 1/3, that we need to build a new terminal. It's called the sunset tax. It's been done in other areas, never had been tried here. The voters approved it. And that's because we had a commission with the vision and the courage to step forward and say, look, we need something. Here's the challenge. Here's the solution. Give the voters a chance to voice their opinion. And something that's going to be coming out very, very soon, in fact, probably in the next 2 weeks, is a very under-the-radar committee called the LCG Future Needs Funding Sources Committee. And it was a group, an ad hoc group that was put together by Kevin Nakan and Jay Castile, both members of the Lafayette City Parish Council, to look at where we are challenged in terms of revenues and how do we address the very obvious needs. That group is going to probably hold their final meeting this Thursday, and we should see a recommendation coming shortly after. I'm going to wrap it up by just very quickly reminding you about District 6, because while I will serve on the council to represent all of Lafayette City and Parish, it is the people of District 6 who will elect me as their representative. And to give you an idea of District 6, if you go down University Avenue to Cameron, you go on over to Ambassador Caffrey, and you come down Ambassador Caffrey into Broadmoor to Robley, you go down Johnson Street, it goes back up a little bit, there's an area behind LaFonda's, a little bit of South College, behind South College Shopping Center, and back up the University where City Hall is located. That's the oldest section of town, all within the city of Lafayette. Some interesting demographics. I did some analysis the other day. We have 16,000, give or take, voters registered in District 6. Pretty even breakdown in political affiliation. 37% Republican, 32% Democrat, 20% no party, but then there's also a little percentage in there of folks who are other parties. Majority white, 84%. Majority female, 54%. Here's the one surprising demographic since I ran in 2007. 41% of the registered voters in District 6 are 40 and under. That is significant. When I ran in 2003 and 2007, it was considered an older district. Not anymore. And that number is increasing. So, why me? And you're going to see that on some of my campaign material. I think that District 6 deserves effective council representation. I think District 6 wants someone who understands the needs and the concerns, and one who recognizes that those needs and concerns are different in every neighborhood. The St. Streets is totally different from Broadmoor, and that has to be recognized. I also pledge to report and respond to every communication. When I was on the council, I had put into place a business practice which I'd use in my private business. If you get a customer request for a service, you make certain that that customer is served. But one thing we had never done in the past is to call that customer after the fact and say, hey, how did we do? Did we address what you had requested us to do? Was it done in a manner that you found acceptable? We had never done that follow through. And that's important that we do such things. And the other thing is, we need to really conduct regular sessions, listen and learn sessions. I mean, I think I know quite a bit about government, but guess what? Not everyone knows everything. You have to get input and you have to listen. So, wrapping up, I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the passion, I have the time that allows me to pay it forward to the community that has given me so much. Again, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure addressing you, and I certainly look forward to the campaign.
Bruce, I have a few questions. The first one, I'd like you to identify one of your life experiences. What one life experience do you think that uniquely qualifies you to be city council member for District Number 6?
I think I have a track record, and that's based on the 4.5 years which I did serve on the City Parish Council. The unique experience would be that I read a saying a long time ago: when you speak, you only express what you know. When you listen, you learn. And that's one of the things that I learned on the council, is that there are more than two sides to every story. In many cases, there are three. But you have to build consensus, and you have to be able to bend and be flexible. While you go into an issue and you say, look, this is the way I am, 100%, I'm not going to change, that accomplishes nothing. If you can't convince 4 other members on the council to vote with you on an issue, then you accomplish nothing. And that was a life experience. It took me a while to appreciate and to learn, but certainly I've applied since then.
Earlier, you had mentioned that you had championed the adoption of the LUS Fiber network. What role do you believe that you will play if you're elected as council member of District Number 6 in expanding LUS Fiber network to the unincorporated areas of the parish, to the municipalities in the parish, and perhaps outside the parish of Lafayette?
That's really a two-part answer. I think we have to treat it in some ways like we do water. The city of Lafayette provides water to the other communities and to the unincorporated areas of the parish, and certainly we are paid for that product. We provide it at wholesale prices, and they in turn disseminate that water or distribute that water to their customers within their political boundaries. The same thing can be done with fiber. Perhaps it'll be more of a challenge in the unincorporated area because municipalities, for example, such as the city of Youngsville, which I believe will be the first municipality to receive fiber outside the city of Lafayette, is prepared to put into place the infrastructure needed to distribute fiber. We can do what's called the head in. We can provide the services, but it's that infrastructure once you get into a community to get it to every home and every business. That's something that they will have to do. That is not our responsibility. It's like a water line. They got their water lines, we provide the product, and everything is good. So we need to look at that. The big challenge is those 60,000 people plus in the unincorporated areas, again, underserved. How will they provide for the infrastructure? The city of Lafayette, by law, cannot build infrastructure outside the city limits. The parish of Lafayette does not have the money. Therein lies the challenge.
Earlier, you'd mentioned that you'd served as the chairman of the Lafayette Planning and Zoning Commission, and I know you played a role in supporting the passage of the Unified Development Code. In your opinion, what immediate impact, if any, will the reclassifications of the zonings in Lafayette and unincorporated areas of Lafayette Parish for residential to mixed industrial to various commercial zoning designations have on increasing or decreasing the Lafayette Parish property owner's obligation to pay property tax?
Well, first of all, zoning does not apply in the parish of Lafayette, only within the city of Lafayette. And certainly, it does impact the value of the property, so it would have an impact either negative or positive. The one thing the Unified Development Code does, it doesn't create that many new codes. 90% of the codes that are in the UDC exist today. We have created a few new regulations based on experience, but most significant, as mentioned, is the zoning reclassification. What the zoning reclassification does, it takes an area and basically says, look, this area, and I'll give you a good example off of Pinhook and Vermilion Street, is zoned light industrial. But if you're familiar with that neighborhood, which is where I grew up, it's primary residential. Well, as a light industrial zone district, those folks that live there are not protected from a concrete plant. I'm sorry, that's going too far. From a pipe yard locating next door. Under the rezoning classification, that particular area will actually be zoned to reflect how it's being used. And the opposite is also true in other areas where they may be zoned residential, but because of nonconformance and grandfathering over the years, they have been put to other uses. So we're adjusting, and it will have an impact. But one thing that's not being said often enough is that, one, we're going to make a major change. In the past, if you were light industrial, everything else that came under light industrial, all the other classifications, could apply in light industrial. It's called hierarchical zoning. You will no longer be able to do that. That's getting a lot of attention. But just because if I live in an area that goes from allowing residential properties to only allowing industrial properties, it does not mean that my property can only be used for industrial. I have the right, just as I have today, to go to the zoning commission and apply for a rezoning. That's important. While we're removing one opportunity to use your property as it's zoned today, we're going to actually protect your property in the long run and yet still give you the option of asking for a consideration to rezone. The other thing that we've come into play is we're trying to protect residential properties from encroachment by commercial development. And I use this as an example, and I know people become weary of hearing me say this. There's a hotel, and they're a great neighbor on College Saloon Road. They built a 4-story hotel that backs up over Quail Hollow. Backyards of a long-established neighborhood are now visible from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor of that hotel. Those people that built that hotel did nothing wrong. They were allowed to do it. They did it by the book. The book was wrong. And those are some of the issues that we're addressing.
Although no one has a crystal ball, what financial role do you believe that the Lafayette City Parish Council should play in funding the outlay of capital improvements and financing the operations for the horse farm over the next 10 years?
None. That's the way it's set up. We spent $6.5 million and we traded property, the youth park next to UL campus, for the property known as a horse farm. That is the extent of the dollars that will be provided by government. Not the parish of Lafayette, because it's in the city, not the city of Lafayette. There is a private partnership that has been formed, a nonprofit, that will take the responsibility of not only constructing the park, which will be a passive park, by the way, no baseball fields, no basketball courts, no recreational center, and they will raise enough monies to assure maintenance of the park in perpetuity.
Thank you and good luck. We have some other questions.
Mr. Lowe.
Bob Lowe, the oldest surviving Marine from Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Always good to show up at these meetings. I want to say one thing. About Bruce. I don't remember when we first met, many years ago. But I do know that I've watched his career in politics and personal life, and I know how he works. He operates when he sees a problem, or is presented with a problem. He doesn't decide right then how to solve the problem. He goes to work and digs in and gets the information on the problem, decides the best thing to do, and then he puts his efforts into doing the best thing about solving the problem. So I want to thank Bruce for what he's done for Lafayette. I deeply appreciate it. My question to Bruce this evening is, we're having a newly formed group, I don't think Bruce mentioned it, which is Acadian 1, the 10 parish area that's going to incorporate we Acadians into one district sort of thing, so that we have a common factor, spread information, can advertise, bring tourists in, and do things. And I'd like to have Bruce tell us what his thinking is about creating this district. Will it be in conflict, or will it be an assistance to Lafayette? Bruce?
Well, as you know, One Acadiana, as they say on their website, formerly known as the Greater Lafayette Chamber of Commerce, was my employer for over 7 years. And Jason Alcubi came in about 1.5 years ago and has made significant strides and progress in accomplishing this regional concept of representing us to the business community.
Oh, one more thing. This does pertain to you. There's a lot of people that kind of feel shortchanged when the city council only meets 3 times a month, and sometimes that's about 1.5 times because of a couple of short meetings. You usually only have 1 good meeting a month. But with the amount of money that you guys are being paid, I don't think it would be asking too much to meet at least 4 times a month, and forget about that day off in the middle. Thank you. That's my personal opinion.
The number of meetings is mandated by the Home Rule Charter as a minimum, I think twice a month. There's nothing that says we can't meet more than twice a month.
Change it.
Don't have to change the charter, just change the rules.
All right. Well, I think a round of applause is 2 weeks from tonight, we have another meeting, and if you mark your calendars, we'd appreciate that. And the meeting stands adjourned, and we thank you very much. Okay.